Formerly suicidal redditors, what's something that kept you alive a little while longer and helped you to get through the dark times in your lives? My friend unknowingly kinda saved my life. The day he was leaving for college, he came over to say goodbye and left me a letter. It was the nicest thing I had received in years. He basically told me how much he has enjoyed being friends with me for the past few years and that he couldn't imagine his life without me. That changed my perspective quite a bit. Before that, I was having a terrible depressive episode and had spent the entire day crying because I was convinced I didn't have anybody that cared about me anymore. Thank God I agreed to meet him that day. It made me realize that even though people may not stay in touch with me, the love remains. Really good bad luck. The day I planned on got interrupted by a rather roof girl in one of my classes. She was popular, people thought she's cool etc. all the high school shit, and I knew her through mutual friends but not well enough to talk, and I always thought she'd be annoying. But she came up to me in class and tapped me on my shoulder and said, "What's your problem?" I was shocked, annoyed and kinda happy someone asked anyways. I told her I had been having a bad couple days. No big deal, and she said, "I don't like how you look when you're sad. You remind me of me when I was sad and felt helpless." I know it sounds cliche, it's even worse. She wrote it again in my yearbook years later when I hoped she'd forgotten. I never told her I had planned to kill myself, but by her being blunt, bold, whatever, she piqued my curiosity. I ended up being great friends with her even though she was every bit as annoying as I thought, and I was happy to talk to her and make friends similar to her. It's not good to rely on others for happiness in my opinion, but it's a good start to getting you in the right direction. My son. I was a single mom and didn't want him to find me. I took a bunch of pills, started thinking about how he would find me and called for help. Started counseling a few days later and medication at that time. I am no longer taking medication, but I do continue counseling when I need it. My sister and my now husband. I couldn't ask for a better support network. Hugged me through panic attacks and stayed up on the phone to me at 2 a.m. when everything felt like it was falling apart. Helped me take the steps to get counseling and to find ways to better manage my depression. I still have dark times, but rather than start to act on them, I speak to my husband or I call my sister, and whilst they can't fix it, they can hear me out and point in the right direction to help me get my coping mechanisms back in play. I know I'm very lucky, and I'm beyond grateful every day. Because I could not, for the life of me, pull the trigger. It was a revolver of some kind. Due to the depression I did not eat and thus had no energy to pull that damned heavy trigger. Thank God it was heavy. My little brother was the only thing keeping me going. Birds singing. And #X200B. Made me realize life was beautiful. And I ought to stick it out. Black Veil Brides and my cat. To this day, their music can uplift my spirits and get me out of a funk like no one else can. And for my cat. I knew she would miss me. She misses me even when I leave just for a weekend. She's my baby and I just couldn't leave her. She wouldn't understand why I wasn't coming back, and I couldn't leave her here with my family who admitted they only keep her because of me. I'm not gonna let her go back to a shelter. Because of them I managed to stay alive just long enough to get out of a bad relationship, and for my mental health to start to improve. Every day I lie to myself and say just one more day. That is the only thing that gets me to tomorrow. Just one more day. I'll try just one more day. Every day I have to try just one more day. After 8 years of 4 different psychiatrists, 3 different therapists and 4 suicide attempts, honestly, the only thing barely keeping me alive is the fact that I can't find a less painful way to go, as what I attempted so far was too much for me to bear while waiting to die. As of now, I'm left empty, as I don't have the will to live, but the will to die isn't stronger than the pain the attempt itself brings. Everything looks grey and sounds dull. My parents tell me they love me and my friends reach out every day, but I feel like I'm on another planet. Every morning I wake up I'm sad I did. My newborn daughter's unreliable sleep schedule. I made a plan to make it where my absence would cause the least disruption between her and her dad's schedule, and then she changed it that night. Then I felt terrible at the thought of leaving her with him. I can laugh about it now. 9 years after the fact. Coffee shops. All the small things in life. Most days when I drive home from school I see an old couple sitting in their driveway just watching the world together. All the dogs I'll never get to see. I drive past an old high school field where many people take their dogs. I always slow down to watch them play for just a few seconds. It's the small things. The things people don't realize make a difference. The glimpse of hope that one day you'll be as happy as that stranger walking next to you. One day you'll be living a better life. This may sound rather stupid, but it was fictional characters. Every time I would come close, or have a thought, I'd wonder what Aragorn would say, or what Gandalf would do. What would Randall Thor say to me? What words of advice would Jon Snow have? I think it was their stories, and their determinations, and their goals that kept me afloat for some time. Their imaginary lives made me smile in the dark times. I don't want my mom to have to cry on his shoulders. BDSM helped me overcome the stress of school as well as give me a reason to live. Maybe it sounds weird, but giving myself to someone and trusting that they have my best interests in mind helped me just let go a little bit. Nothing keeps me here. I just don't know how to let the body totally disappear after death. I've read this thread a lot lately and it's bringing me a measure of comfort on a Saturday night by myself. I hope no one minds hearing me and is understanding, because this is my first post on Reddit. I have bipolar disorder type 1 and I was diagnosed right after I graduated college, which was 10 years ago. The suicide ideation was really bad at that time. My first boyfriend at the time knew I was showing signs of BP and did nothing to help me / showed no concern. He was having an affair with a girl younger than me. They're actually getting married, found out by accident. It began 10 years of meds, therapy, partial hospitalization programs, and the first of 10 hospitalizations. Then there was a period of time where I seemed to be okay and met someone who I had more in common with and who I loved dearly. 10 months into our relationship, we had just gotten off the train, and as his way of breaking up with me, told me that he only dated me because he pitied me. It felt like a gut punch and I almost threw myself onto the tracks because I felt it confirmed my worst fear, that people only were around me out of pity and nothing else. What he said to me that night magnified my sense of shame and self-loathing. This was back in 2013. Not long after that, I overdosed on an anti-anxiety medication and ended up having 2 major seizures that nearly left me brain damaged. The hospitals themselves sort of helped, but then I was assaulted at one that was well regarded in the area that I live in. Workers on the ward watched the whole thing and did nothing to help me, which made it worse. That was also in 2013. My last hospitalization was in 2014, thank God. Anyway, that's the context, and I hope it isn't too long, behind all this. While I still think about it, especially now in the midst of the pandemic and the loneliness that I feel and not being able to find work in my field, I think what kept me from not doing it again was my mom. She is everything to me and I couldn't do that to her, it would destroy her. The other thing is a little different. I was a film major in college and I worked in television as an assistant video editor until I had to leave my job, change of location, which would have resulted in me reliving a trauma that I couldn't shake, which I loved. I spent and still spend a lot of time watching movies, and the way I keep thinking about my life is like in scenes: stay a little longer, you gotta see the next scene. What's around the corner? It might not be bad or hopeless. I still try to my best to think this way, to think of the scenes that might be up ahead, to think nothing. Edek why I'm here. I went through a really rough patch of depression a couple years back, right as summer started. It was a bad time and I was feeling lower than I had in a few years, but I had also just gotten a job at this Ren fair I used to go to as a little kid. It was something I had always wanted to do, and I was really curious about how it would be to work there, so I told myself I would wait until the season ended. And that final date was the date I held on to for the rest of the summer when I started to feel bad. No, I couldn't do anything now, but I could then. And then, when that date finally came around, I'd managed to work myself back to a place where I was mostly alright. I was also in therapy at the time, but being curious about how the fair would go really kept me going. I was in middle school and was dealing with a ton of bullying and heavy depression. My grades were shit, I had no friends, I was constantly in trouble at home and dreaded going to school. I just wanted it to stop, and then my mom and dad brought home a kitten. I truly believe that their decision to rescue an animal is what rescued me. Hopper, who I've had for 4 years now, is the best cat I've ever had. He's such a sweetheart, and since he was a baby we've been inseparable. When I was 13, remember holding a whole bottle of melatonin one night and contemplating taking the entire thing before bed so I just wouldn't wake up the next morning. It probably wouldn't have killed me, but I didn't know that back then. My intention was still the same. I ended up deciding not to do it that night. I wanted to, but for whatever reason I didn't. I still planned on doing it at some point that week. The next day, my parents called us kids into their room and told us they had decided to adopt another cat to keep our elderly cat company. I couldn't bring myself to care all that much, but still pretended I was excited until we walked into the Humane Society and I saw a little grey and black kitten in one of those glass cages all by himself. It was love at first sight. From that moment on, we were inseparable. I hardly considered taking my own life from then on because I kept thinking but then Hopper will miss me. It sounds stupid, but this cat changed my life. I guess it's my friends that make me stay alive. I've tried to help them with their problems and they've tried to help me with mine. I appreciate them so much. Without them, honestly I would have been dead years ago. This may sound childish or weird, but anime helped me through it, so did reading and writing. A lot of reading, writing, anime, and therapy got me through it. My desired way got blocked by customs 2 times, over 1k lost in funds. A peaceful method is not cheap. Suicide is unfortunately really prevalent in my community. An aunt completed suicide before I was born, an upstairs neighbor, my neighbor in a college dorm, a former neighbor, a 17-year-old child, a former friend's mother, a high school acquaintance, and very recently, a friend of a friend's mother. These exclude all the local people I have read about online but never had the chance to meet. In March 2018 I had a clear, minimal pain plan for completing suicide after spending several weeks planning. The pause in my planning came from receiving some exciting news delivered at the end of March, and admittedly I became too busy trying to fight off smaller fires to return to that plan afterwards, otherwise I'm confident I would have gone through with the plan. Thinking back, I find it interesting that I didn't even consider how my loved ones would react / how much hurt it would bring. Thinking about suicide as a means to an end restricted me to a sort of tunnel vision that meant I had zero consideration for my parents, partner, best friends, etc., especially because I was so attached to all these people. One thing I did repeatedly was reach out for help, but probably through the wrong avenues. For example, friends who were incredibly stressed themselves and a student-run crisis service at my university called AMS Speakeasy that honestly made the problem worse. So glad they sacked the service. I'm in a better place now. I feel like I have a stronger grasp on things that make life meaningful, and I have greater intuition on warning signs so that I know to seek actual, professional help. I still feel deeply saddened for those lost to suicide. I wish there was some combination of words that would assure people considering suicide to reach out for help. The repercussions are minimal in case the help is not what's expected, and help sometimes requires self-advocacy to get to the right professional who clicks. That there is some solution out there that will always be the better option to suicide. It may not be clear and you may not have an idea of it in the present, but it will unfold with time. Even when it is tempting as a logical means to an end, the hurt and the numbness eventually gets better without suicide and makes you incredibly strong, and there is always a significant role for you on this planet as someone who loves and is loved. I have a small safe, in it is a Ziploc baggie full of pills. Leftover antidepressants from when I was trialing different meds. I'm not sure if it's enough to be successful in committing suicide, but it's there, as well as all of my razor blades. The reason I'm still alive is that I can't find the key. There is 2 of them and I hid them both. My memory hasn't been so kind to me lately, so I don't remember. Whenever I'm upset I'll go on a rampage looking for it, but I can never seem to find it. Sometimes I'll just be sorting through my stuff, one just pops up, and I'm just like, past my name, you fucking genius. That's what kept me alive, my stupid memory and my past self looking out for me, knowing that I would relapse again and again, but the world could never see the end of me. The thought of my husband coming home and finding me. Nothing. Gonna kill myself by the end of the year. 27 days left, cool face, thumbs up, thumbs up. My brother, he has severe disabilities and would never understand what happened.